The most threatened large mammal on Earth is perhaps the Sumatran rhinoceros, according to its last assessment published by the IUCN. As of May 2019, there are thought to be just 30 mature individuals remaining in the wild, with a total population of fewer than 80. However, more recent reports suggest this could now be as low as 34 to 47 total individuals, which would make it the rarest rhino on Earth. Its conservation status of critically endangered is shared with 2 other rhino species, but it is the only one of these 3 to be listed as experiencing a declining population size, suffering an 80% loss in the last 30 years. In addition to this small population size being fragmented, the Sumatran rhinoceros faces a multitude of other threats, including habitat loss and poaching. According to Animal Diversity, the horns of the Sumatran rhinoceros can be worth up to $50,000 per kilogram on the black market. They are used both for tribal practices and traditional medicine, as well as being considered an aphrodisiac in some cultures. Thankfully, from the 9 animals in captivity, calves were born in 2012 and 2016, and conservationists continue to work for the survival of the species. In the wild, the Sumatran rhinoceros is listed as extant and resident in a single country, Indonesia, where multiple studies point to a handful of locations across the country's 2 largest islands. A small number of individuals are found on the eastern side of Borneo, but the majority are found on Sumatra at the northern and southern ends of the island. The Sumatran rhinoceros is the smallest of the 5 rhino species, with all of the sources that I collected putting its weight at 1,000 kilograms or less, which is smaller than Africa's black rhino, which comes in second smallest. In terms of Asian rhinoceros species, the Sumatran rhinoceros is unique for the fact it exhibits 2 horns rather than 1. It shares this attribute with the 2 African species, the white and the black rhino, both of which we'll meet later on. Furthermore, several genetic studies have shown that the Sumatran rhinoceros is more closely related to 2 extinct species, including the woolly rhinoceros, than it is to the 2 remaining extant Asian species, both of which we'll explore in succession, starting with the 2nd rarest rhino on Earth. The Javan rhinoceros was incredibly difficult to find media for. However, I was able to get permission from Royal Safaris to use these 2 shots, taken on a safari on the far western side of Java. As we discovered earlier on, the Javan rhinoceros exhibits a single horn, a trait it shares with the Indian rhinoceros, which we'll explore next. It is also significantly heavier than its Sumatran cousin, coming in 3rd largest by my research, with all sources agreeing on 2,300 kilograms, or around 5,000 pounds. As of 2018, based on camera trap data, there were thought to be just 68 individuals remaining, 29 adult males, 24 adult females, and 15 juveniles. However, more recent estimates suggest this total number is now closer to 50. On a positive note, this population is regarded as stable by the IUCN and unfragmented, and this species seems to be regarded ever so slightly less at risk than the Sumatran rhino. The small population is limited to a single national park on the western side of Java, and we must travel north across the Bay of Bengal to meet our next particularly large rhino species. The Indian rhinoceros, also known as the greater one-horned rhino, is considered by many to be the largest rhino species on Earth, a competition it shares with Africa's largest species, the white rhino, which depending on source is also frequently awarded that title. From the sources that I collected, the Indian rhinoceros is consistently cited as weighing 2,700 kilograms, or roughly 6,000 pounds, and the World Wildlife Fund puts it even larger at 2,800 kilograms, which would make it heavier than all the credible sources I collected for the white rhino. Although this species is found in the forest, it is more often present in grassland and wetland habitats, and is listed as extant and resident in just 2 countries, India and Nepal, being declared extinct in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Bhutan, where it once existed. The remaining populations are all present in protected areas between the two countries, including India's Kaziranga and Manas national parks, and Nepal's Bardia and Chitwan national parks, the latter of which is the site of a particularly interesting study titled Demography and Viability of the Largest Population of Greater One-Horned Rhinoceros in Nepal. Chitwan National Park was established in 1973 as Nepal's first national park in order to protect several important species, and hosts the second largest population of Indian rhinos, with somewhere in the region of 600 individuals. This study took place over a 7-year period from 2009 to 2015 and monitored 110 individually known greater one-horned rhinoceros, in addition to using decades of published data from the national rhino count. The study found that the population was made up of 62% adults, 13% subadults, and 26% juveniles, from which we can conclude that the researchers were not math specialists. Just joking. The average group size computed from 553 rhino sightings was 1.63, while the typical group size was 1.98. The study states that the least number of births were recorded in March, April, and October, while the months of January and August had the maximum number of births. However, there was no defined seasonality for births. For mothers, the age at first calving averaged 7.91 years, and the inter-calving interval averaged 41.28 months. In terms of mortality, a total of 374 rhino deaths were recorded from 1998 to 2015, of which roughly 50% were caused by poaching. 49% of these mortalities were male, 35% female, and 16% unsexed, and in terms of age, 83% were adult, 4% subadult, and 13% dependent young. Amongst the 47 calf deaths recorded, 29.8% were due to tiger predation. Population size fluctuated a remarkable amount over the years, from a high in 1950 to a low in the late 1960s, after which it has steadily been rising, which the authors attribute to improved protection, with Chitwan National Park being established in 1973. Survivorship was almost the exact same for males and females, which is in stark contrast to the elephants we explored in the previous video, where males had lower survivorship. The conservation status of the greater one-horned rhino is more positive than that of the two previously explored species, being currently set to vulnerable, with an estimated mature population of 2,100 to 2,200 individuals, and other reports suggesting the total population is over 4,000 and is thankfully on the rise. Positively, this increase has been relatively consistent for the last 100 years. In 1905, the total population in India's Kaziranga numbered just 12 individuals, and is now thought to be the greatest stronghold for this species, hosting over 2,000 individuals according to UNESCO. In Nepal, an estimated 65 Indian rhinos remained in the late 1960s, whereas the total population as of 2018 is thought to be roughly 650 according to the IUCN. This isn't, however, the largest population size of all 5 rhino species, and we must now head across the Indian Ocean to Africa to explore our final 2 rhino species, the first of which has both positive and negative conservation attributes. The white rhino has the largest population of all 5 rhino species, with an estimated mature population of 10,000 individuals as of 2020, which is in decline. The most recent State of the Rhino report published by the International Rhino Foundation suggests that as of late 2024, there were a total of 15,752, down from 17,464 in 2023. Tragically, the rarest subspecies, the northern white rhino, is now all but extinct, with the remaining 2 individuals kept in a private conservancy in Kenya, both being female. As you might expect, poaching was one of the main factors relating to the decline of the subspecies, and researchers are constantly exploring new techniques to combat this, including the authors of the next study we'll explore, titled Remotely Piloted Aircraft Systems as a Rhinoceros Anti-Poaching Tool in Africa. Just FYI, this technique can be used to monitor poaching activities for both African rhino species, and some drone shots in this section might be of either white or black rhinos. The research took place in South Africa, a country that, according to the study, holds more rhinoceros than any other country in the world, with 83% of Africa's individuals, and also experiences the highest absolute levels of poaching, which is the main threat for their conservation. In 2010, there was an average of 0.9 rhinoceros killed per day, which more than doubled to 2.2 per day in early 2013. The study itself was published in 2014. In South Africa, around 25% of the total population of rhinoceros live on private land, and the cost per guard patrolling 700 to 800 hectares, or around 8 square kilometers, was roughly €11,000 per year in 2014, or around $12,500 USD converted in 2025. As such, those working in rhinoceros anti-poaching are demanding new technologies to increase their efficiency to detect and intercept poachers before a rhinoceros is killed. Some security firms already patrol using microlight aircraft. However, these are expensive, and the authors of this study experimented with the use of remotely piloted aircraft systems, or RPAS, a much smaller and lower cost alternative. The fixed-wing RPAS is launchable by hand and has a maximum range of 10 kilometers and an endurance of 50 minutes. It is equipped with an onboard video camera which relays to a ground control system, a GPS, a data logger with a barometric altitude sensor, along with other awesome-sounding technology. The total cost for one of these rigs is just shy of €14,000, or just over $16,000. 20 flights were conducted at altitudes ranging from 10 to 260 meters above ground level. Rhinoceros detection flights were done over approximate rhinoceros locations previously provided by rangers monitoring individuals regularly on the ground. Poacher detection flights were performed over areas where rangers and team members dispersed, simulating poacher activity. Pictures were then reviewed to identify rhinoceros, people, or fences, and were georeferenced. Interviews were also performed to learn more about poaching. The most common profile of a poacher is that of a local person with low income and who obtain money selling the rhinoceros horns to the lowest level of the syndicates. The poacher accesses the game farm on foot, sometimes accompanied by dogs, and generally there is an accomplice who drives him closer to the fence and meets him at some point for collecting. Poachers do not show preference for particular times of the day, days of the week, or time of the day, but considering nights only, they do show a preference for full moon nights rather than dark nights to enter the game farms, as increased lightness facilitates their movements, and time poachers spend inside of the farm typically ranges from 3 hours up to 2 days. In terms of the guards, general surveillance procedure in the study area consists of 90 guards patrolling the 100,000 hectares or 1,000 square kilometers on a daily basis, and surveillance of farm perimeter is generally done every 2 days, or daily if there are poaching alert signals. Using the remote aircraft, flying during 1 hour at an altitude of 150 meters and a speed of 30 kilometers per hour, the researchers were able to cover 711 hectares. Rhinoceros were easily detected in both grassland and forest habitats, and people simulating poachers were identified in a wide range of altitudes, from 29 to 158 meters in grassland and forest habitat, although it was more difficult to distinguish some individuals in the forest. At the lowest altitude, it was also possible to detect footprints in the sand, but the quality was not sufficient to check the condition of the fence wires along the entire fence route. The thermal camera provided the finest images in the early morning, when the ground was coldest and there is more contrast between it and any animal or person. In conclusion, while practical limitations should be considered, the researchers propose remotely piloted aircraft systems usage as a tool for surveillance for sensitive areas, for supporting field anti-poaching operations, as a deterrent tool for poachers, and as a complementary method for rhinoceros ecology research. According to the IUCN, South Africa is one of 5 countries that host over 99% of the white rhino population, the others being Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe and Kenya, and this species is also listed as extant in some capacity in 4 other countries in southern and East Africa. As we discovered earlier on, the white rhino is often cited as the largest rhino species, but from the sources that I collected, has stiff competition from the Indian rhino. The International Rhino Foundation lists them as the same size, whereas both the International Fund for Animal Welfare and Encyclopaedia Britannica list the white rhino as a little smaller, making it the second largest of the 5 rhino species, and significantly larger than our last species, which can be differentiated in more ways than one. In addition to its smaller stature, the black rhino can be most easily distinguished from the white rhino by the shape of its lip, with the white rhino possessing a square lip compared to the pointed lip of the black rhino. While both species exhibit 2 horns, the forehead of the white rhino is also longer compared to the smaller, more compact forehead of the black rhino. With a conservation status of critically endangered, the population size of the black rhino is much smaller than that of the white rhino, although it is still larger than any of the 3 Asian species, with 3,142 mature individuals estimated to exist as of 2024, a number that is thought to be increasing. This species used to be the most numerous of all 5 rhino species, but a 98% reduction in population size occurred between 1960 to 1995 due to poaching. Thankfully, in the last 3 decades, the numbers have rebounded, and the most recent State of the Rhino report suggests there are now a total of almost 7,000 black rhinoceros as of 2025. Like the white rhino, the majority of these individuals are found in a handful of countries. For this species, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe and Kenya, and it is also listed as extant in some capacity in a further 8, bringing the total countries to 12, the most of any of the 5 rhino species. Habitats include savanna and shrubland, and this species is also found in desert habitats, particularly in Namibia, which was the site of our 3rd and final rhino study, another to focus on anti-poaching measures titled Effects of Dehorning on Population Productivity in 4 Namibia subpopulations of black rhinoceros. As a quick forenote, most of the footage used here will be of horned rhinos, due to difficulty in finding extensive footage of dehorned rhinos. The study states that many reserves across several countries, including Namibia, South Africa and Zimbabwe, now dehorn their rhinos in an attempt to reduce poaching. The authors define dehorning as the controlled removal of the majority of the rhino's horn, which decreases the weight and therefore value of the horn remaining, reducing poaching incentives, a tactic first used by the Namibian Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism in 1989, making it the first country to use dehorning as an anti-poaching measure. While dehorning has the potential to reduce poaching incentives, there are obvious concerns regarding the removal of horns, so in this study, historical data were used to investigate whether dehorning has an effect on age at first reproduction, inter-calving interval, birth sex ratios, calf survival, cause of death and lifespan in 4 Namibian subpopulations of black rhino. The dataset included information for 265 rhinos from 4 populations as far back as 1973, with a total of 77 individuals across the populations being dehorned at least once, making up a percentage of the individuals in each given group ranging from 0% in population B to 81.8% in population D. Mean intercalving interval was shorter after dehorning in all populations, however, this was not found to be significant. Birth-sex ratios were similar in 2 groups, but one showed that all calves born prior to dehorning were male, which decreased to 62.5% of births after dehorning. Mean calf survival per female was greater than 80% in all populations, and there was no significant difference in calf survival between the populations. Poaching accounted for 50% of calf deaths in populations A and C, fighting accounted for all other deaths in population C, and predation was the leading cause of death in population B. When comparing dehorned to horned mothers, calf survival was greater than 75% in all groups, and calf survival was not significantly different between dehorned and horned mothers. The frequency of poaching was higher in horned individuals, however, dehorned rhinos were not significantly more or less likely to be poached than horned rhinos, and dehorning and the number of times that an individual had been dehorned were not significant predictors of lifespan. In conclusion, the researchers state that the main cause of death across all individuals was poaching, although there was no significant difference in the proportion of rhinos poached between dehorned and horned individuals, and no evidence was found to suggest that dehorning has any effect on age at first reproduction, intercalving interval, birth-sex ratios, calf survival, or lifespan in the black rhino, which is reassuring in the continued use of dehorning as an anti-poaching technique in this species. According to the UN's World Wildlife Crime Report published in 2020, Rhinoceros accounted for 11.8% of illegal wildlife seizures by value between 2014 and 2018, the third highest animal group behind pangolins and elephants, a family you can learn about in this video, exploring all 3 species of elephants. Thank you so much for watching.